Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Jessica Jordan overcame remarkable challenges, transforming brain damage from a neurotoxin in oysters, which led to sex addiction, into a pioneering effort in addiction recovery. She developed one of the most comprehensive porn addiction recovery programs, focusing on holistic healing and addressing the underlying trauma. Her empathetic approach and personal journey inspire hope and provide effective pathways to recovery for many. Thank you so much, Jessica, for being on my show today. I'm just so pumped up to anybody that helps people and just to empower them and just to help them transform and to really discover who they are as a spiritual being. It's a beautiful thing. So God bless you. Thank you for what you do. And I'm happy you're on my show today.
Thank you, Gina. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. I've been doing a lot of podcasts lately and I love it. It's so exciting. And I'm just working on getting the message out to the best of my ability to anyone who's struggling with pornography addiction, sex addiction, any addiction, no matter what the addiction, because we can all heal from it, recover from it. And every addiction is merely a symptom of unresolved emotional trauma from the past, usually childhood trauma that most people aren't even aware of that they have it. So there's that awareness piece. And that's why I'm here. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So your journey from a wildlife biologist to becoming a behavioral change expert and coach, so this is all like from one extreme to the other. And I love biology, by the way. That's the only thing, part of science that I actually enjoyed was biology. Physics, chemistry, I didn't like that. Can you actually share what inspired the shift in your career towards helping others overcome addiction?
Absolutely. So, it must have taken something pretty darn big to kind of have, like a dream job where I literally would get to go hike in the redwood forest 5 days a week with my dog and just having an ATV and just tromping around. And uh, it was kind of like living the dream, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then I ate the wrong batch of smoked canned oysters and basically ingested a single-celled neurotoxin called ciguatera neurotoxin. It's basically it's a causes a neurotoxin illness that affects the autonomic nervous system. It unravels the myelin sheath along the nerves. It caused a 19 millimeter lesion in the left front lobe of my brain. Extreme memory impairment, all sorts of things were going on. So for several years with that, I was actually at extremely high risk of death through cardiac arrest and respiratory paralysis, and developed like the most extreme um, dietary issues and sensitivities and chronic pain and chronic fatigue syndrome and all sorts of things that came up. And at that time, I was mostly just concerned with staying alive. And that it was very obvious that I had adult PTSD. I had all the telltale signs of it, and like to a pretty extreme degree. And so I started doing research on trauma, and I read a book called The Body Keeps the Score, which your listeners may be familiar with. It's an amazing book that is a scary eye opener at times, but a brilliant eye opener. And then I realized in that book that I had childhood trauma. And I didn't think I was a person who had childhood trauma. Like my parents didn't beat me or anything, it was nothing like that. Um, and so through my scientific research that I was doing on my own, since doctors were giving me no answers, doctors, therapists, neuroscientists, like everyone's like, you're just stuck with this. We don't have a healing solution for you. Here's some medication to numb the pain, which I refused to take because the side effects make it worse and you create a dependency on. And I wasn't going to go down that route. I was like, let's do some holistic healing. And so I would dive deep into the scientific literature. Um, and I eventually had to stop working as a wildlife biologist because my illness got so sick and I had to quit. So I was on a 2 years of just doing self-recovery, self-care. Um, my disability income during that time wasn't enough to pay the bills. So I'm like putting food and rent and credit card. And I'm like, well, this is better than not being alive. So I want to heal, because if I don't heal and recover from what I'm experiencing, then uh, being alive doesn't even sound like an option I want to have for myself. Um, and at that time, my brain had developed something called hypersexuality disorder, which is essentially the sex addiction, where the subconscious mind and the brain creates extreme, extreme, extreme sexual urges. And I believe that this happened for a couple of reasons. One, in order for anybody to heal from any trauma, any addiction, no matter what caused it, no matter what type you have, no matter how long it's been there, the body is in great need of something called oxytocin. It's a neurochemical, a neurohormone that feels absolutely wonderful and amazing, and it helps us to feel safe. And the sexual experience is one of the things that can help to skyrocket that in our bodies. And so part of me believes that my subconscious mind knew that it needed that and said, this is how you can create that oxytocin that you need to heal and recover. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I was doing it in the right way or the healthy way. The right way or the healthy way would be maybe doing that with someone who I was in like a loving, committed relationship who was also available emotionally. And the reason why I didn't select that was because I had such subconscious low self-worth that my addiction was actually rooted in external validation seeking behavior. External validation seeking behavior, which when I don't get rejected out in the world, my subconscious mind goes, oh, you must be worth something. Mm. And how does a woman go and create that experience of not getting rejected? You go create a sexual experience for yourself. And so now the addiction is really don't get rejected. Don't get rejected. The addiction becomes you need to go feel valuable. You need to go feel worth something. You need to go prove to yourself that you're worth anything. Go create that sexual experience. And so that is one common thing that actually happens among women. And I've spoken to many women about this, is oftentimes that sexual promiscuity, not in every time, but in many times, is rooted in subconscious low self-worth. And that subconscious mind is saying, I need to feel worth something. And the neurochemical hit that it provides says that you're worth something right now. You're really worth something right now. You're special, you're important, you're lovable. And if we don't create that from real and meaningful relationships, and if we don't create that from within, then it creates this addictive external validation seeking behavior, which happens in many different ways.
Absolutely. And it makes me think about my past too. Again, childhood trauma. Didn't feel loved because my mom was always working. I was, pretty much my older siblings who were way older than me, 10 years, 11 years. And I was a baby, so I was babysat a lot. Didn't have my mother much around, but she was loving though. I give her that. She was definitely a loving mother. But the trauma that I had held within myself was just stuck. And it caused me as a child to have a nervous stomach. And it caused me to feel gross because I did develop at an early age. I was already developing like breasts like in second grade. It was already starting to form. And I started my period, I think at 3 days shy from my ninth birthday, 2 or 3 days shy from my ninth birthday. So
Very
I
young.
was very young. So I felt so separate from everybody else. Like I was the outsider. And so, which made me become that people pleaser because I didn't feel like I belonged. So I would do anything for anybody there. And it got to a point where, boys were starting to then recognize me as I got a little bit older, like sixth grade, fifth grade. But then my friends and girls were getting jealous, and it changed me because I went from wearing cute little, dresses, knee length, of course, to wearing like looking like a tomboy because I
Yeah.
wanted to make them happy and not be jealous, but yet lowering my own self-worth and being someone who I'm not. So with that, I had a whole bunch of horrible relationships, of course. And then it stemmed then from drugs in my senior year of high school, because in that rave scene, when you're taking the ecstasy, you have that love feeling, right? So
Mhm.
that energy inside that is everybody's feeling that. And that's the time I felt like I belonged. And then my boyfriend at the time was he was part of that culture. So I was part of that culture. And from there, I then went into alcohol when I turned like 21. Then I started drinking, I think when I was 22. Drink, because again, I was in that club scene and I felt wanted and not rejected. And I felt like I belonged. But that alcohol dependency created a monster inside me. And I was holding all that anger, frustration, resentment, fear, hate, all of those negative emotions that we all have that are there. Everyone has them, by the way. We're human beings, everybody has them. But I responded them differently by aggressive, like anger, hitting, throwing things, where it would jeopardize my first marriage. And he was also codependent. So you have two unhealthy people together. It's not going to work. And so that dependency then turned into like I had to actually go to rehab and relapse many times. It wasn't until I really focused on my mindset and had to learn how to love myself, talk to myself properly, that I started to heal and then really go and venture out into this wonderful spiritual being, Gina, and just loving who she is now, and not in an arrogant way, but so confident in what I say and what I do, what I do. So if you can talk a little bit about, because I think you specialize and you're certified in NLP practicing, right? So, and you work with subconscious mind, and it's definitely a crucial role in addiction recovery. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, can you talk a little bit about that and how it is a crucial role in addiction recovery?
Yes, absolutely. And so NLP is neuro linguistic programming, and there's so many different parts of it, but one of the many parts is the words we use, the choices we use, the meaning it has, because our subconscious mind is always listening in to everything we say 100% of the time. And so in everything that we say about about ourselves, to ourselves, or if we say it to another person or we journal it, but most of the time it's just our thought loops we get stuck in. It's a form of self-hypnosis. Everything we say about ourselves, to ourselves, or to another person is a form of self-hypnosis. What is the conversation that is in your mind? And what emotion does that produce within you? Is it a disempowering place to be? Or is it an empowering place to be? Empowering and healing. Because when we are living by the hormones of stress, it is impossible to heal and recover from any addiction or trauma, and even chronic illness. We can heal from almost every chronic illness, all addictions, and all trauma. But it depends on where our nervous system is. And the language that we use when we speak about ourselves, the story that we say to ourselves and others. What's your story? And when you speak it to yourself or another person, do you feel like a victim, or do you feel like someone who can conquer the challenges that life has thrown at you, and you have become a more enlightened and empowered being on this planet as a result?
Yeah.
And so it's never about being in denial of what happened to us, but it's about adopting the empowering perspective shift so that we see ourselves as powerful and capable human beings who can handle any hardship that comes our way. And the language that we use, the story that we tell ourselves, and not just the choice of words, but how we say it. What's your body language? What are your facial expressions? What's your tone of voice? How is the other person going to respond emotionally when they hear your story? Are they going to pity you and they're going to feel like you've been victimized? Or are they going to see a totally amazing superhero that they are inspired by because your hardships almost killed you, but look how you're thriving now? Or look at how you're not giving up when you're in the thick of it and you're going through it, you're pushing past it, you're getting up, you're being resilient. You're telling yourself, hey, those past 10 ways I tried wasn't the way, but I know that there is a way and I'm going to make this happen. I am unstoppable. Watch me. And so when when we've learned how to make the shift in the language that we use, it changes our emotional state. And that is enormous. And I love what you said about your story about learning to love yourself. And that self-compassion piece, when we are living by the neurochemicals of self-compassion, there is nothing that can stop us. There is nothing that will knock us down and keep us there, because failure doesn't scare us. Because failure, we no longer equate failure to low self-worth like we used to. Saying, hey, I have what it takes to get through this. There's some people in my life who don't believe in me and they don't trust I can do it. Watch me. I'm doing this. I'm investing in myself in every imaginable way to get past this hurdle and become a stronger human being on the other side. And so that's just one example of how we speak with, to ourselves. What form? Well, it's always self-hypnosis. And so what are you hypnotizing yourself into believing about yourself? And so that's just one aspect of the many, many aspects of NLP. And I teach my clients self-hypnosis for their own self-empowerment and how to catch themselves in the moment when they're in a disempowering thought, and how to interrupt the pattern of the past and reroute to a place that they feel empowered. And we do this both with our thoughts, our choices, our decisions, all of it.
Wow. Yes. And I was just thinking back to my old marriage that I was just sharing with you. And I remember about the pornography. It was an issue in our marriage because I would always catch him watching porn. I'm like, dude, you have a wife right here. What's going on? Can you explain why men have that urge all the time, or what's going on in their heads, and why do they need to have it, see it, do it? Can you please
Yeah.
explain that?
Yeah. So, well, when it comes to pornography, pornography never rejects you and it never says no, and it's always available. You don't have to brush your teeth or be handsome or be smart or be witty. You could
Yeah.
not showered for 2 months and pornography will still not reject you.
Yeah.
And so when a man or even a woman goes into a sexual experience, there is a bit of vulnerability. Pornography never requires you to be vulnerable. It never requires you to be brave. It never requires you to be a stronger version of yourself. And when we go into the sexual experience where it requires bravery, vulnerability, or us to be a better version of ourselves, not everyone is brave enough to step into that. And so they choose pornography. It's like pressing the easy button. And my favorite neurobiologist, Dr. Andrew Huberman, he says the most dangerous thing for the human mind is receiving pleasure without having to work for it. Receiving pleasure without having to work for it. When that is available in our lives, and it is for all of us, anyone who has a smartphone, for example, it is available at all times. And the easier it is and the more pleasurable it is, the more addictive it is. And it trains the subconscious mind to then not don't put effort into things that give you a reward. Do it for free and effortless instead. So there's that part of it. Maybe if a man is having a really bad day, maybe his boss yelled at him and he's having low self-worth, he might go and watch pornography that day because his subconscious mind goes, oh, that person in the video is not rejecting me. And it gives them the neurochemicals of love and safety. And so it's an escapism behavior. Mm. And one of many, 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 we have endless escapism behaviors. Every escapism behavior is a slippery slope to addiction. And so a lot of men and a lot of women as well, but a lot of men haven't necessarily gone in and done that inner work to get to know themselves on a very deep level. And the more we get to know ourselves on a deep level, man, woman, whoever we are, then we get to see what our weaknesses are. And then we get to strengthen them and turn them into strengths, essentially. That always requires bravery. Bravery always requires vulnerability. And not everyone is willing to raise their hand and say, I want to lean into the bravery. Let me watch pornography instead. Let me pick up that booze instead. Let me, play hours of video games instead. Let me numb out instead. Let me go do some thrilling activity that allows me to temporarily forget about the woes and challenges in my life. And every time we choose an escapism activity, we actually weaken our neurology to be resilient as a human being, because we're strengthening our neurology to be able to handle stress, because you're training the subconscious mind to say, press the easy button without doing the work. Go numb out with some substance, or go choose an activity that's so thrilling that either one of those, whether you're numbing out or chasing the thrill, both are highly addictive to someone who doesn't yet have the bravery to go in and do the inner work to strengthen their neurology to no longer feel the need to escape.
Mm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, does it affect the brain? I heard it affects the brain if they've done it for so many years. Does it do anything to the brain actually?
It does. And actually, everything we do does something to our brain.
Yeah, that's
What we
right.
choose to eat, what we drink, the air quality we breathe, our thoughts, everything is affecting our brain. And so, for 3 years of my 5-year recovery, I was with a man who was severely addicted to pornography, which is how I learned that pornography addiction was even a thing. He was also an alcoholic, would do casual cocaine, poppers, 50 to 100 whippets a night, and my subconscious mind was attracted to someone like him who was also a narcissist, belittler, because my subconscious low self-worth said that's the man you deserve to be with, until I went in and did the inner work. And so his brain had developed a strong preference to pornography. So even though I was sexually making myself available to him over and over and over and over, he would reject my sexual advances over 99% of the time, because his brain developed a preference for pornography. He literally had neural pathways now developed in his brain that said, you only engage in the sexual experience when you are alone and when you have a digital screen in front of you. So now even if that person in the screen were to step out and be present in the room with you, a lot of men who watch pornography, now their subconscious mind and the neural pathways in their brain go, hold up, wait, there's another person in the room with you. This is not how we have sexual experiences. Don't make that, the erection can't happen. There's performance anxiety. There's all sorts of things that go on. All sorts of things that go on. The subconscious mind goes, nope, nope. Maybe when you're alone with a digital screen, but with another person in the room, don't even think about it, says the subconscious mind. So I learned about that. And then when I learned about that, it gave me insights to previous relationships I had been in, where I'm like, okay, there's certain things that are making sense now to me.
Yeah, because then I always thought that, is it me? Am I ugly? Am I not attractive anymore? Like, does he hate me? Like, what is it about me that he's just always doing that and we're not as
Yeah.
romantic or intimate anymore?
Well, and
But
that's the thing, because their subconscious mind will actually prefer the pornography over you
mhm.
when they have it in their life. And there's that switch that will always begin to happen. And it's like, it has nothing to do with us and has everything to do with them.
Yeah.
And if they had never watched pornography, they would see you as like the most beautiful woman on the entire planet when they're with you.
And
And
that's how,
yeah.
yeah, I was to say that's how well, so I'm remarried now and both of us are really healthy. He's never experienced any like addiction, or maybe he did say he had a porn addiction before when a while back, but he actually overcame that addiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then years later we met, and then now it's like our sex life is wonderful because it's like almost every day.
That's amazing. That's so beautiful.
So
And I honor that and I celebrate that. And that's how it needs to be for more people. Like, for real.
yes. And he like this morning, because I was like no makeup and all, I felt like all nasty because I didn't shower yet. And I, when you have morning breath, you didn't brush your teeth or anything. And he's all home. He's all, oh, I love being next to you. I'm like, you do. I said, but
That
then
makes it
you
even better.
I know, I'm like, wow. I said, I wouldn't even want to be by my next to me if I was if I was you. But I mean, I guess that's what happens. Magic happens when you're healthy and you know yourself and you're just so fascinated with each other and just love each other so much. Just that's what how it's designed. That's how it's designed.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, in your opinion, what role does societal stigma play in both the development and recovery from porn addiction?
Yeah, a lot of people say that it's not even an addiction, and those are the people who want to keep it in their lives and who refuse to look at the science. And so they're choosing ignorance essentially. The people who say that it's not a real addiction are actively choosing ignorance so that they don't have to make any changes in their lives. That's one version of pressing the easy button.
Yeah.
And so there's that. And I mean, healing from pornography addiction, one thing that I've learned is you can apply the same formula for anyone who has any addiction, no matter what the addiction. And it's also the same formula to heal from any PTSD or trauma, because the exact same shifts in the body and in the subconscious mind need to take place. And so for example, with my clients who I help them overcome pornography or any sex related addiction, once they're in my program, we actually identify every single escapism behavior and choice or substance in their life. Every single one, every single one, every single one. And the reason why is because if someone tries to just tackle and address the one thing, then it's with the one addiction, it's going to automatically fuel any other existing escapism behaviors or addictions that they have in their life. And if they don't have another addiction, it's going to, one of their escapism behaviors will become an addiction. Mm. And this is because we have to heal on the root subconscious level, heal the emotional wounds of the past so that the addictive experience is no longer craved by the subconscious mind. And so I think this is maybe one reason why a lot of people who are in 12-step programs will say, okay, I overcame alcohol, but now I'm addicted to cocaine. I overcame cocaine, but now I am a gambling addict. I overcame gambling, but now I'm addicted to, I'm an emotional eater and I'm overweight and I'm addicted to food. And and it's playing addiction whack-a-mole. Mm-hmm. And so I think one of the common misconceptions out there is that the addiction itself is the problem, and it's never the problem. It's a symptom of the real problem, which is unresolved emotional wounds of the past, which almost 100% of the time goes to childhood. Mm-hmm. Even if you had parents who loved you, they might not have known how to be emotionally available for you. And that teaches the subconscious mind of the growing child that they're unworthy of emotional availability. And that right there creates an enormous amount of discomfort in the subconscious mind. And as long as that discomfort resides there, the subconscious mind will look for ways to feel comfortable. Every escapism behavior, which is anything that can become addictive, it's the temporary, security blanket of neurochemicals that fills that void momentarily without solving it, but keeps you continuing wanting to seek that, whatever the self-destructive thing is. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Healing on that root level and preventing just the jumping around from addiction to addiction. And my clients, I'm so proud of them. They're my heroes. I tell them, like, all right, watch this. You'll be, say, like, you're, 60 days free from pornography, and be careful of your other addictions that might show up. And they're like, oh man, I went on and I binged shopped on Amazon and my wife made me return everything. And I realized what I was doing. And I'm, the sugar increase goes up, like the cravings, and say, yep.
Right.
It will happen. Yeah.
Yes. And so for our listeners who are wanted to learn more about your work, I know a majority of them are women, but like we were talking about before, they have husbands, they have sons, they have brothers, they have uncles, there's always a male in their life.
Yeah.
Where can they find more information about the Leap of Courage Recovery Program?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. So, first of all, picture a king wearing a crown on his head. And every man has the option to become his own king and ruler of his life. And so my website is selfcraftedking.com, selfcraftedking.com. And the front page says, don't follow us on addictive social media, which I'm very proud of that for.
Love that.
And there's a lot of free resources. There's hours of free content, videos to watch. You can register for free to get going on the introduction of my online course. There's different ways that men can choose to do my program, whether it's just the online course. There's about 50 hours worth of material in there because we go deep and comprehensive.
Yeah.
We leave no stone unturned because this is, at its core, it's a trauma healing course. And when we actually focus on healing from the trauma, the addictions melt away because the subconscious mind has no use for it. And connection is the opposite of addiction. Connection is the opposite of addiction. And that's connection with others, connection with yourself, and then a spiritual connection.
Yes, community is so important. When you
Mm-hmm.
have a community and you're all on the same vibration, the same thing, you feel like, yes, we can do it together, and you feel empowered and you're just ready to take on the world.
Exactly. And so selfcraftedking.com.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And finally, for someone who's listening who may be actually struggling with porn addiction or actually knows someone who is, what are the first steps you would actually recommend for them to take towards recovery? And how can they reach, or not reach, how can they talk to people about what they're going through?
Yeah. So I'm glad that you phrased it like that because the first thing I was going to say was talk to people about it. Talk to people about it because the moment, like when it's bottled up inside of you, it creates so much shame, and it is 100% impossible to heal and recover when living by the emotions of shame.
Mhm.
And one thing that we learn is out there in the world, when we share vulnerable things with people, there's some people who will not get it. They don't understand. They might shame you. They might judge you, that you could tell by their tone of voice or their body language. Or even if they try to say the right supportive words, they might feel really uncomfortable. And that makes us feel uncomfortable. And now that teaches our subconscious mind, don't share, hide it to yourself, don't share the vulnerable things. And if you're a person out there who has those experiences, just know that there are people on the other side of the spectrum who, when you share your story with, they will understand. They will meet you with kindness, compassion, and love. And when we share our most vulnerable experiences or stories or parts of who we are with a kind, compassionate, loving, empathetic person, healing takes place in that moment. We absolutely need to speak with people on that level, but we can't get stuck there. We can't get stuck there. It's actually easy for the storytelling can turn into another external validation seeking addictive experience when we learn who to tell it to and they're just giving us love and comfort and accolades. A lot of people get stuck there. They get stuck in learning how to tell their victim story in a way that makes it feel like they're receiving an adult security blanket from the words and compassion from the other people. I myself personally got stuck there. Then we move on to the next stage, which is strategies. I have human loving support, and now I need strategies to get me out of this. And so just finding people to speak with who know and understand what you're going through. And if you're having trouble finding that, then welcome to my tribe. Then come and talk to me and my coaches, and my clients are my heroes. They're amazing. They're fantastic. Just this past Monday, one of the guys broke down into tears, and everyone in there like swooped in with love and support. All of the other men in there swooped in, and it was so like such this beautiful unifying moment. It was, I love it.
Oh, wow. I bet it was like one of those moments you're just like, you felt that in your core and you felt that in everywhere in your body. You're probably getting tingles and hairs standing up on your
Absolutely.
head. Everything was just like all the energy's like, that's how we're supposed to
Yes,
be feeling, by the way. We're not supposed to
exactly.
be feeling like icky, although we all feel icky. I get it.
Yeah.
But
And when we have those icky feelings, any emotion that's a stress emotion, It's there to serve its purpose. It's giving us a message for us to take action on it. And is that action, are we going to cower and hide? Or are we going to be brave and lean into the more difficult choice, which is the real thing that that challenging emotion is telling us?
Mm-hmm. Yes, because outside in this world, TV, garbage, news, garbage, everything outside is like garbage besides nature, like her beautiful background here. I love your trees. But yeah, I mean, really, really get in touch with Jessica. That's I was loving this conversation already, and I'm just so happy that you're doing what you're doing. Keep on doing it because you're changing people's lives, and it's like that ripple effect, and it's just going to just spread positivity and love, and that's what the goal is here on Earth.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's one of my plans is to get my course translated into all of the major languages, all of them maybe if possible, and just get that out there on a planetary level. And then also help to reduce all of the human trafficking with the sex slaves. And especially there's millions of children who are captured in that right now. And it's, child pornography is one of the most commonly searched genres out there. And so this is like, I'm on a global mission and I'm like raising my army of comrades to help with healing the adults who are suffering from this. I currently only work with adult men. And then for every one individual who heals, there's a ripple effect of goodness and healing and kindness and light that spreads out from that one individual. And we're all just doing it together. And it's amazing.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up too. That's right. Yes. I was doing a whole nother podcast with one of my friends, and we were talking just on that child sex trafficking alone and how it's there. And even that movie, which they were trying to avoid sharing that Sound of Freedom movie out in the theaters. It took them about 5 years after they actually created that movie
Wait,
to
I had
have
no
it
idea.
out. Yeah. It's
Wow.
just, it's incredible. And just Caviezel, that actor, Caviezel, the one who also played Jesus in The Passion. So he was the guy, he was playing the guy who was actually involved in saving the children who are sex trafficked.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, but thank you so much for bringing that up because it is happening, and it could stop by one less search on the search engine for child pornography because no one has that urge anymore. You
Right.
know?
Absolutely. And I'll just share one important thing on that. I've been thinking about this lately. So there's a lot of people who they don't believe that they're worthy of recovery. They don't believe that they're worthy of what's on the other side of recovery. First of all, that's a lie that you're telling yourself if you believe that you are 100% worthy. It is your birthright. And even if you're not there and believing it yet, if you are someone who is, say, watching teen porn or child porn, then just say, don't do it for you. Don't do it for them.
Mm.
If you don't feel like you want to even do it for you yet, do it for them. And oftentimes, the men who I work with who have the strongest and deepest recovery, it's because they have a vision greater than themselves, that they are of service to others. And when we as human beings place that idea in our mind that what we do matters and it helps to positively impact the life of other people, it neurochemically sets us up for motivation. We get more creative, we get more inspired, we get all of the neurochemicals set us up in a way to make success easier and on a deeper level. And so if you're struggling with feeling like you even deserve it, then say, hey, let me do this for the kids and adults who are by the millions being stuck in the sex slave industry through human trafficking.
That's right.
And so if you need something to motivate you, use that.
Yes. Oh, I love it, Jessica. Thank you so much for those inspiring words because it needs to be said. And I'm just glad you said that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's such an honor to have you on my show. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Yes, you are so welcome, Gina. And thank you for having me.